gentlemen, it's the Mary Moo Show. Welcome back and Happy New Year. Please help me welcome to the Mary Moo Show, Phil Mason.
Thank you for reaching out for the interview. It's fantastic. We always emphasize that we're not going to just talk about the quantum physical world. We're going to do a demonstration of the power of God to reshape the quantum universe, is the language that I use. Two converging realities was, number one, we were doing these outreaches into New Age festivals, and increasingly I became aware that the New Age community has a fascination for quantum physics. They have a magical view of the universe. They believe that the universe is charged with all these magical properties of spirit beings and spirit guides and so on. Really looking at it as sort of evidence for God's fingerprints, sort of a forensic investigation. We saw some extraordinary miracles where it's either materializing new body parts like a new eyeball or restored muscle or whatever, and it's dematerializing other unwanted body parts such as tumors, cancer cells, etc. Physics lays at the foundation of the fabric of the cosmos, that God is a quantum physicist, that he built this universe in a way that is responsive to the supernatural intervention of heaven invading, in terms of raising our conscious awareness of who God is, the fingerprints of God that are all over the universe.
Was it a step of faith, or did something happen to you one day that made you think, right, we're going to go back out into these festivals and start, commanding healing? What happened to you? And then please share some of the miracles.
I was in a drug house, a bit of a drug den, and all the kids in the house were using drugs. And this guy was tripping on either magic mushrooms or LSD or some kind of psychedelic drug. He had a massive seizure, and he overturned the kitchen table and the chairs went flying, and he had a major seizure and then went motionless, and then he went blue and we couldn't find any vital signs. Everyone freaked out. This guy was dead. There were no vital signs. We all panicked. I called the ambulance. So I got saved seeing the supernatural, and I was immediately activated in Signs and Wonders. We were in the midst of an outpouring of the supernatural. It was happening consistently right before our eyes. She gets down on her hands and knees, and she puts her hand on the woman's shoe, and she said, "In the name of Christ, I command this piece of glass to come out of your foot." Well, it did. Now he challenges us with the same challenge to bring heaven to earth, and not just to read these stories as historical stories.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Mary Moo Show. Welcome back and Happy New Year. I hope you're feeling good wherever you are. It's been a really good year so far. It is really cold. It's cold. But it's a good year. And there's so much to look forward to. So much to do. Like this show today. I'm really excited, guys, as you can probably tell. And we're going to go straight into it. We're just going to listen to one track, and then we're going to go straight into the interview, and then we're going to bounce out of this place. You need to stick around. I'm interviewing somebody who I've read their books and really wanted to speak there for years, and I'm so excited it's finally happened. There is so much to learn. It's all about great stuff. I mean, I don't want to spoil the beans. You're going to be amazed at the content of this interview. Please stick around. And the music we're going to listen to today actually is going to kind of be a really good segue in. I mean, let's kick things off with Hovey, No Magic, and I'll see you straight after this. This is Hovey, No Magic.
I like that, like, they're trying to know who to plug. Like, bruh, that's all God say, no magic. Like, I can't manifest my life, it's all love. If he said it, then it's done. Hey, they like Hovey, how it happen? I say, this all God, this ain't no magic. Mellow bringing hip-hop's finest. Word up to my folks, they the Whittown diamonds. Can't wait for perfect timing, I gotta put the time in. Call out 105, think I made it through the climate. Sweating through my shirt, man, I was straight dying. Sun in my eyes, ultraviolet. It's funny how the humble be the brightest. You ain't never flipped the switch or take the guidance from me. Kept it driving. This lifestyle that I'm around, way too new to me. My parents came to a show, barely even saw them, know what that do to me. Sometimes I wish you just made two of me. My life so complex, but orchestrated so beautifully. That necktie and that black jacket wasn't suiting me. Don't need no paper on that wall to see the fruit in me. Bear your fruit in me. So truthfully, I can't manifest my life, it's all love. If you said it, then it's done. Hey, and they like Hobie, how it happened? I say, this all God, this ain't no magic. I can't manifest my life, it's all love. If you said it, then it's done. Hey, and they like Hobie, how it happened? I say, this all God, this ain't no magic. Like cut the nonsense, enough of the coincidence. This life is a godsend. Ain't no San Antonio who'll show you who the pops is. When I saw the light, it hit my pupil, caught me Hobson. Let the living water break the levees of my conscience. Yeah, I learned to love him in the process. Once upon a time, there was a man who met the Loch Ness. That's the end of it, cause we lost him to the darkness. Moral of the story, it's gonna always leave you lifeless. Don't fall for the counterfeit, your spirit truly priceless. Yeah, I can't manifest my life, it's all love. If you said it, then it's done. Hey, and they like Hobie, how it happened? I say, this all God, this ain't no magic. This ain't no magic. This ain't no magic. This ain't no magic. Yeah, I can't manifest my life, it's all love. If you said it, then it's done. Hey, and they like Hobie, how it happened? I say, this all God, this ain't no magic. This ain't no magic. This ain't no magic. This ain't no magic. This ain't no.
The Mary Moo Show on Ruach Radio.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Mary Moo Show. I'm so happy that you are here with me today. And as I said in the beginning, we have a very, very special guest to me. I did tell you a bit about this guest and why, his book is so important to me and my family, funny enough. But it's the topic. It's what he's talking about, what he's interested in. And I'm so excited to talk to him. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, without further ado, please help me welcome to the Mary Moo Show, Phil Mason. Phil, welcome to the Mary Moo Show.
Thank you so much, Mary. It's great to be with you. And thank you for reaching out for the interview. It's fantastic.
And so thank you to your wife as well, the wife Maria, for responding to my DM and not thinking I was somebody a bit crazy. And we're putting us in contact with each other. So I'm really excited about that. So just looking a bit about you, just in case nobody knows who you are or what you do. Obviously, from reading your bio, it's wonderful to hear and to see and know that you've been married for 40 years to the beautiful Maria. And you have 4 children, 3 boys and 1 daughter, and you have grandchildren. You have 3 grandchildren, 1 on the way. And you live in Byron Bay, which I've never heard of, all the way in Australia, which you've told me. What's the temperature? Tell everybody, what's the temperature?
Oh, the temperature right now is 25 degrees Celsius, and it's extremely humid, very moist, lots of moisture in the atmosphere, probably very, very high humidity. We're in the middle of a really wet, rainy season. I guess it's sort of equivalent to sort of Asia's monsoon. We get the wet season in summer over here, and it's been very wet and warm. So it's like living in Southeast Asia at the moment.
Nice for some, I did let him know, guys, that it's like 2 degrees at the moment, but anyway, you some sunny Byron Bay in Australia, which I would love to visit one day, but also that you 25 years you've been pastoring or being a spiritual overseer over the church there, if I'm correct.
That's right. We pioneered the church 25 years ago.
Yeah.
When we first started the church, it was called New Earth Tribe, and
Wow.
Our target audience was largely the sort of New Age community, because this is the biggest New Age area in Australia, the Byron Bay region, Northern Rivers, they call it, the Northern Rivers. It's a beautiful area, very, very beautiful, and it's attracted a lot of New Age people, a lot of countercultural people. Drug culture, all that sort of stuff. And so, I've come out of the New Age. I was a convert to Jesus in 1979 out of the New Age. Wow. So I came to the Lord out of that background, and I've always been reaching back into the New Age community for the last 44 years ago, since I met the Lord. And been married for 40 years. The church is now, we just had our 25th birthday, and we actually have changed the name to the church to Tribe Church. And we've got much broader target audience now than just the New Age. We still do reach into the New Age festivals. We've done over 50 major outreaches into big New Age festivals here in Australia. They're more like a trade show. If you sort of think trade show, lots of rows with hundreds of stalls. And I'm a seminar speaker in these New Age festivals. I've been speaking in these festivals on the topic of quantum physics and the supernatural realm, and I've been doing that for years and years. And it's tremendously fun because we always do a demonstration of the supernatural power of Jesus at the end of the seminar. And amazingly, we've had some instances where everybody's been healed. It's been quite extraordinary. So we always emphasize that we're not going to just talk about the quantum physical world. We're going to do a demonstration of the power of God to reshape the quantum universe, is the language that I use, which is the miraculous realm. And the New Agers are pretty switched on to the supernatural realm. They all have a magical view of the universe. They believe that the universe is charged with all these magical properties of spirit beings and spirit guides and so on. And so we found it to be a really good creative way to reach into the New Age community with the gospel message, but also with the power of God. So that's a bit of our background.
I love it. And I know we were talking earlier, but I absolutely love that, because on a previous show we was discussing about these kind of New Age trade shows. And I actually went to a regular beauty exhibition in London. And the top level was all, very, very heavily New Age, and they had lots of tarot readers and things like that. And I think the toilets were sort of towards the back in that same area. So obviously I went to the toilet. That's how I knew they were all there. But in the middle of them, there was this group, this church that were there, that were like in competition with these tarot readers and all this spells and everything else, actually saying we can demonstrate the power of God. And I remember this is in a beauty show. I remember being so taken back and so impressed with them that they did like what you say you do, where they went ahead, they booked a spot, and a lot of people were there queuing up to hear God and see the demonstration of power and miracles in that kind of space. So what you're telling me now is incredible. I love that kind of thing. And obviously everyone on the show, we love to interview people who've come out of New Age and people who were doing all sorts of different backgrounds, because it's good. We still need to go into those places, go ye into all the world, and try and reach out to these people and let them know you're got a kind of right idea, but it's the wrong thing. And over here, God does move with power. God does move with power and miracles. And you talked a bit about the quantum physics and things like that. And for everybody who doesn't know, I picked up many years ago, my sister gave me the book Quantum Glory, written by Phil Mason. And that's how I obviously got to know who he was. And I was fascinated with the explanation of how God is in science, and let's stop trying to separate it all. But you explained it a lot more beautiful than I am now, a bit more eloquently. So can you tell us a bit about the Quantum Glory, the book, which I read many, many years ago, that's still on sale today if you want to get it. But can you let us know a bit more about it, why I decided to write it, especially if you don't have a physics background? How were you able to write the book?
Well, there's a convergence of two separate realities that happened at the same time in my life. And this is around about, 2005, roughly. I published the book in 2011, the beginning of 2011, and it took me 5 years to write the book. The reason being was because I was originally a complete novice when it came to quantum physics. Now, the two converging realities was, number one, we were doing these outreaches into New Age festivals. And increasingly, I became aware that the New Age community has a fascination for quantum physics, and that they have actually adopted the science of quantum physics to try to demonstrate the oneness of everything, that everything's interconnected. There's no such thing as separation, and which is a very, sort of New Age idea, all is one, all is God, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I was very much aware that the New Age community were fascinated by quantum physics, and that many, many books had been written of the convergence of science and spirituality. And so the New Age was sort of at the cutting edge of writing books on the convergence of science and spirituality. And as I surveyed the Christian book world, I realized there was nothing that I could find that had been written from a strongly charismatic perspective of a belief in the present day operation of the gifts and power of the Holy Spirit, signs, wonders, miracles, etc. That no one appeared to have written from that perspective on the realm of quantum physics. There's a few evangelical authors who'd written about quantum physics, really looking at it as sort of evidence for God's fingerprints, sort of a forensic investigation of the fingerprints of God in the universe, and how if there is this quantum world, God created that, and so that's the perspective they've written it from. I wrote my book from a different perspective. I wrote it from the experience of having seen the demonstration of the supernatural power of God over and over and over again, repeatedly. Because as we went into these festivals, we went in offering 4 things: dream interpretation, supernatural encounters, physical healing, and spiritual blessings. They were the 4 things that we would offer, and they were up on the wall in our booth, and it says free. And so we had a lineup of people that were coming in, just a relentless lineup of people coming in. We kept seeing the power of God breaking in. So we were in the middle of a season where the supernatural was breaking in quite an extraordinary way. And without exaggeration, we were seeing approximately 400 healings per festival. Now, that's a lot of healings, and we only counted the ones where the person was healed on the spot, where there was massive reduction of pain, complete elimination of pain. So we saw some extraordinary miracles. So I was in a season of my life where I was seeing the power of God right before my eyes, up close and personal. I was an eyewitness of these things, extraordinary miracles. I could tell you about some of them in a moment,
Please,
if you would like, Mary. But I was seeing the supernatural, and I had a growing awareness that the New Age community held a fascination with the quantum physical world. And then I realized I don't know anything about quantum physics. I don't know a thing. So it took me on a journey. Oh, there was also a movie released called What the Bleep Do We Know? And it was by a very, very hardcore New Age group in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. And they released this book and movie, What the Bleep Do We Know? And it was a deep dive into the quantum physical world. But of course, they were putting a very strong New Age interpretation on quantum physics and co-opting it and literally taking ownership of it and then presenting it to the world as this is, evidence that the New Age worldview is the correct worldview, and so on. So there was all these things happening around me. Plus, one other element, in the charismatic Pentecostal world, there was a growing interest in quantum physics, and I would hear prophetic speakers, teachers beginning to reference quantum physics. But I also started discovering that there was almost like a folklore that had emerged in the charismatic world that took some of the truths from the quantum physical world, but kind of didn't really represent them very accurately. And that kind of rubbed my fur the wrong way a little bit. And I started thinking, there's a need for a book that's written from a strongly charismatic perspective on a belief in the supernatural that demonstrates how God is the creator of the heavens and the earth, and quantum physics lays at the foundation of the fabric of the cosmos, that God is a quantum physicist, that he built this universe in a way that is responsive to the supernatural intervention of heaven invading earth and the miraculous realm. I mean, we see that when we read the stories of Jesus in the Gospels, continuously demonstrating the power of his world breaking into our world, and demonstrating, he had authority over the quantum world, because every miracle is a quantum miracle. It's a miracle that's happening at a quantum level, where it's either materializing new body parts like a new eyeball or restored muscle or whatever, and it's dematerializing other unwanted body parts such as tumors, cancer cells, etc. And so it's all about materialization and dematerialization. And as a charismatic Christian, I mean, you know, we're familiar with this because we believe in the supernatural. So anyway, all these things crashed in on me in the second half of the 2000s. And so I ended up diving into writing this book. Everyone around me was cheering me on, saying, come on, you've got to get this book out. Then I finally gave birth to it in 2011, got the book out, burning the candle at both ends to get it finished. It was quite a achievement in the sense that I went from a place of knowing nothing about it to writing on it. And I thought, well, if I'm going to write on the subject, I want to know that what I'm saying is grounded in current thinking in the quantum physical community, the community of quantum physicists and theoretical physics. So I had to read extensively, and I did. I went deep into it, and I wanted to communicate it to the Christian world too, because I thought, no, hang on, Christians need to know about this stuff. Christians need to understand this is the fabric of the cosmos. This is the building blocks of the material universe, and God created the material world out of nothing. And so, you know, it's fertile soil for exploration from a Christian perspective. So that's kind of the background to the story of the writing and the birthing of the book. And by the grace of God, it has withstood the test of time. It still sells, people still buy it. And I haven't had people push back and, you know, say this is completely off base. This is not scientifically based. You know, it's just quantum quackery, as some people call it. On the contrary, I've had a lot of people, including quantum physicists, who've come in contact with the book and have said, wow, it's actually a really well-written book. So that was gratifying, just to know that it's a book that stood the test of time. It still sells. People are still interested in the subject. And it's very informative just in terms of raising our conscious awareness of who God is, the fingerprints of God that are all over the universe. It is fascinating, and I'm deeply fascinated by it, and I still am fascinated by it.
So am I. And it's funny enough, you talked a bit about the miracles and things earlier, but that book, I used it as like a reference point for when I even pray. Like, it really helped me in terms of praying for people, expecting miracles. But with that understanding, it kind of really informed that. So the way I would pray would be with this knowledge inside of me, really knowing that, God, you actually can do this. So for me, it's really been the language. I see it in how I pray. When I ask God, I need you to do, I know you can do this, I need you to do this miracle. It's there. It's really, really helped me. And I mentioned to you before that I did a talk about it in one of my previous churches. I use that as a reference guide. You know, I referred to it to try and explain to people that, yes, miracles can still happen, they do exist, and therefore for us to, you know, take advantage of and go into the world and show people about it. But you mentioned about how you have witnessed some incredible miracles and things like that. And I wanted to ask for you to share some, but also when did you know that you had that gift of healing or the miraculous? How was it? A step of faith, or did something happen to you one day that made you think, right, we're going to go back out into these festivals and start, you know, commanding healing? What happened to you? And then please share some of the miracles.
Great question. Thanks, Mary. Yeah, when I came to Christ in 1979, I was the tipping point for me was seeing a man raised from the dead. And I was in a drug house, a bit of a drug den, and all the kids in the house were using drugs. And there was one kid who'd had a drug overdose, and he had a seizure. Now, it happened at a time where some Christians were visiting us and preaching the gospel to us, and they were in the house. And this guy was tripping on either magic mushrooms or LSD or some kind of psychedelic drug. He had a massive seizure. And he overturned the kitchen table, and the chairs went flying, and he had a major seizure, and then went motionless, and then he went blue, and we couldn't find any vital signs, and everyone freaked out, and someone said, get an ambulance. And this is like 1979. And so I was a skinny 6-foot kid who won all my races at school. And so I said, I'll get an ambulance. And I ran out the door and I ran down the street to the nearest phone booth and rang the ambulance, ran back to the house. By the time I got back there, here's this kid completely alive, restored, no longer tripping on drugs, and Christians walking around with their hands in the air praising God. And we were in tears and everyone was blown away. Then the ambulance knocked on the door, and the ambos, we call them ambos over here, the paramedics, they arrived, and I'm like, oh no, I'm the guy who made the call. And I went and answered the door. I said, look, I rang you. This is a legitimate call. This is totally legit. This guy was dead. There were no vital signs. We all panicked. I called the ambulance, but he's inside and he's alive. And so they came in, they did some checks on him. They took him away to the hospital and then brought him back hours later and said, this kid's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with him whatsoever. He was completely restored, and it was an absolute miracle. The next Sunday, me and a bunch of guys got baptized in the church. Wow. And from then on, followed the Lord. So I got saved seeing the supernatural, and I was immediately activated in signs and wonders. And so we were seeing miracles. We were praying for people everywhere and getting people healed. The thing was, though, Mary, I didn't pursue healing. I was, my wiring, I'm wired as a teacher and a communicator and a thinker, and I got sort of sucked down the rabbit hole of biblical revelation and started running Bible studies, and that I put all my energy and focus into teaching and communicating the gospel and discipling all these new kids who are getting saved. And I didn't pursue the supernatural. I really should have, but to my shame, I didn't, and I let it go. And it wasn't until around about mid-2000s, early to mid-2000s, we came in contact with Bill Johnson from Bethel Church in Redding, California, and he was beginning to do conferences in Australia on healing, and he was demonstrating the power of God. I mean, Bill has a very strong healing anointing, and so wherever he goes, healings break out. And so we were seeing the supernatural, and we immediately got activated in the supernatural. And it was right about that time that we were going into these New Age festivals, and so we went in there and we made healing the sick one of the main features of what we did in ministry. And immediately we started seeing, literally hundreds of people getting healed at these festivals, and it was blowing our mind. And I've always believed in the supernatural, but it wasn't until the mid-2000s that we really got activated in a significant way. And since then we've done well over 50 of these outreaches. And when you average it out, we've seen roughly 400 healings per festival. So it's getting up there, 15,000, 20,000 healings. When you do the math, it adds up over the years. Yeah. We've seen so many miracles. And I guess that was one of the things that was stirring me around writing the book, because we were in the midst of an outpouring of the supernatural. It was happening consistently right before our eyes. I'll give you one story, which I think is still one of my favorite stories. It happened in one of these festivals, and I believe it was in Sydney, Australia. And so there's this group of people in our booth. We do the ministry. We can minister to 2 people at a time, because I've got 2 pairs of ministry couples, and they're ministering to two people at once. And so we were full. There was no way that we can get more people in. There were already people lined up, but there was a woman hobbling along the aisle. And one of our girls on the front desk, she said, "Wow, looks like you need some healing." And this dear lady, who was probably in her early 80s, said, "Oh, yes, I do." She said, "I was walking. I took my rubbish bin out to put it on the curb for the garbage collection, and she said I went out in my bare feet on the driveway, and I trod on a piece of shattered windshield glass." So it was a little cube of glass. You can imagine a shattered window in a car, and there was just a piece of glass. And her feet were like as tender as baby's feet. And this piece of glass went right inside her foot. And so she had this bit of glass embedded in her foot. So she went to the hospital, and they found out that the glass was so deeply embedded in her foot, it went straight through the skin and straight inside. And that they were really worried that if they tried to remove it, if it severed some nerves, it could actually impair her ability even to walk. So what they wound up doing was they stitched her foot back up again, and they bound the wound and with bandages and everything. And they said, look, we're going to let nature take its course, and the human body will begin to build sort of a cocoon of tissue around the foreign object, so that eventually they can go in there and remove that without it damaging the nerves. Anyway, this is her story. She said, so the glass is still in my foot, and I'm due to go back to the doctors in another week or two, and they're going to try and remove it without it doing any nerve damage. And so she's hobbling on her heel on one foot as she's walking past. So this girl says, well, look, Christ can heal you. And she said, really? She said, look, just sit down here. We had a spare chair there, and sat her down. Meanwhile, I'm in the booth ministering to somebody else, but I'm kind of watching what's happening out here outside the booth. And this girl gets down on her hands and knees, and she puts her hand on the woman's shoe, and she said, in the name of Christ, I command this piece of glass to come out of your foot. Well, it did. It came out of her foot, and it appeared right next to her shoe. So the girl picks up the piece of glass, and she says, is this your piece of glass? And the woman looks at it. She goes sort of ghostly pale, and she said, that's it. I saw it in the X-ray. It's a little cube of shattered windshield glass. And suddenly she's now holding it in the palm of her hand. And so the girl says, quick, let's take off your shoe, and then let's have a look and see what's going on. She takes the shoe off, she takes the bandage off, she takes the dressing off. Now, here's the amazing thing. The stitches where they first opened it up had disappeared. The stitches had disappeared, and there was just a little gray mark. And so she presses on the gray mark where this bit of glass was. Now, it would have been super painful to have done that, but she said, it's not in there. She's now holding the glass. So there's this phenomena called quantum tunneling, where quantum particles can disappear on one side of the wall and reappear on the other side of an impenetrable barrier. It's just it takes a quantum leap and reappears on the other side. This piece of glass quantum tunneled outside of the dressing, the bandage, the shoes, and everything, and it appeared on the ground. And she was completely healed and completely astonished. And then she wound up bringing some friends back to the next festival, and we met her friends, and they got healed. And anyway, there's a lot more to the story, but just that particular miracle has always fascinated me. I think I even wrote about it in the book because it was just such an extraordinary story. Because literally that piece of glass dematerialized and rematerialized on the ground right next to her. And, it still blows my mind, even telling the story that happened, but it really did happen. And we were just all completely amazed. The woman was just completely beside herself. She was astonished. And yes,
I love
so
that.
That's a great example of a quantum miracle, a miracle that's happening at a quantum level, because there must be billions and billions of atoms that make up that piece of glass, but the whole thing dematerialized and rematerialized outside of her shoe. So, and that's incredible.
I love stories like that. And it's funny how I love how the Spirit of God, when we ask the Spirit of God to take control of things and conversations and things like that, how the focus from what I thought kind of switches and changes, and I see where this is going. But I'll mention this. I think I've always loved this because all my life I've had these kind of what you would call like quantum miracles going through. I was funny talking about glass. I remember I've shared it on the show before that years ago when I was young, we used to have a glass door in our kitchen. Like the kitchen door was glass, wood framed, but was glass. And I was running around the kitchen from the living room for the kitchen, round and round with my brother. And I don't know how this happened, but the door was closed. And doesn't sound real, but this really did happen. Like I ran through the glass, and my brother followed through after me, and then we stood, and then the glass just shattered after we had come out of it. And my parents, till this day, my aunts, my uncles, everybody remembers Mary and my brother. We ran through glass until even when I think about it, my parents was, because we had no marks on us, was completely fine. but we ran through the glass and it only shattered after we ran through. We just looked and it just went like that. And we used to experience lots of, yeah, we used to experience lots of miracles. Like my brother was with my we actually saw him on Christmas time. Actually, my brother was helping brother Danny, we'd call him, doing some tiling on our roof, on the porch. And my brother went up the ladder and the tiles were beginning to slide down. He didn't see, but brother Danny was on the ground and he was like, trying to move your head, and it just sort of split around him and fell to the ground. And so anytime this channel, I'm always sharing these stories, I've always tried to make sense of them when I was growing up, because my parents are very praying people and they always pray for God to protect us, but he can protect us in such ways that don't seem to make sense. Wow. These are miracles. Everybody knows we ran through glass, and I tell the story all the time. I don't know how. We just ran through. It was really thick. Ow! Did you run so fast? And my mom goes, my mom even can't explain it to people. All she knows is those two ran through glass and stuff like that. But I love this kind of thing, because you talked about earlier about, especially these New Age festivals, sometimes the people who are there, they do have some sort of a heart to believe. They kind of believe something in the miraculous somehow, that something will happen. And I wonder if that's why the miracles are quite great in that community. And it made me think about somebody listening who wants to experience these kind of things, experience the supernatural, move in the supernatural, experience all of this that we're talking about. And I know in the scripture it talks about believing in God. Would you say that for somebody who wants to experience a move of God, the supernatural, and really see God alive, because I really feel everyone should, would you say, or what would you say, belief in God, belief in the power of God, that's setting that kind of atmosphere, is something that creates the space for God to move in that way? Or what would you say is needed, the recipe to see these kind of miracles?
In every occurrence of the supernatural, there is faith at work in some measure. Whenever there's a miracle, there has to be some kind of faith in God and belief that this is who he is and these are the things that he does or can do. And so I think obviously faith is the key there. And we build our faith up by, number one, reading the Gospels and staying anchored to the reality of heaven invading earth in Christ, and his instructions to his disciples to pray, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Because Jesus demonstrated, he brought the power of heaven to earth, and now he challenges us with the same challenge to bring heaven to earth, and not just to read these stories as historical stories, but actually to follow through with that. And Jesus commissions us, if anyone has faith in me, the works that I do, he will also do. And he said that having faith in him is the criteria. So we can build our faith up by reading the stories of Jesus demonstrating the supernatural and his commission to go into the world and to heal the sick, to cast out demons, and to bring heaven to earth. And so the more we build ourselves up in that understanding, it's interesting, every great healer in the history of the church, whether it's Smith Wigglesworth or Heidi Baker or John G. Lake, obviously there's hundreds in our modern times. You've got guys like Bill Johnson and Randy Clark who've got extraordinary history of releasing the supernatural. Every one of them had to start somewhere. And most of them have their horror stories of, I prayed for this person and they died. I prayed for this person, they didn't get better. And you could easily be put off the scent, and the enemy whispers in your ear, well, it's not your gifting, mate. It's, must be someone else, must be those superstar Christians. They're the only ones who can do this, and it's not your gifting. And I think, people take the bait on that and they convince themselves, oh, it's not my gifting, or it's not something God's called me to do. But I found that the testimony of these people who have broken through into significant outpourings of the supernatural all had their horror stories, and all had those times where they prayed and nothing happened. They could have easily be put off the scent themselves and never have gone any further in pursuing it. But my own story is that we pursued it, we preached on it, we believed it, and then it began to happen. It's almost like we preached our way into it. And,
Wow.
I think it's true that everyone who's gone on to have a significant healing ministry will tell you their horror stories of the early days when they prayed for people and they died or didn't get healed. And but we've got to get past that stumbling block and continue to believe with persevering faith that we will see breakthrough. And I think, in a lot of senses, we're actually proving the gospel by doing that, by going on the journey to pursue the release of the supernatural. We are actually demonstrating the truth of the gospel. Jesus says these signs will follow those who believe. And as we put our trust and faith in him, we will eventually break through if we persevere and don't get put off scent. Keep on going after it and persevering. And that's been the story of all the great healers in the history of the church. They all had to break through certain barriers, and they kept persevering in faith until they started seeing breakthrough. And that's been my story. And I know it's been the story of many others as well. And, and like I said, it's proving the gospel is true. And if these never, ever, ever happened, even though the Bible promises them, people would say, well, how do we know that these promises are even true? Jesus. But, the fact that we go on and people can start getting activated in the supernatural, we're watching the next generation of people coming through who are hearing these stories and reading the stories of the miraculous and going, well, I don't just want to read about this stuff. I want to be actively engaged in participating in the supernatural ministry of Jesus. And we're watching them getting activated in the supernatural. Bill Johnson used to say the difference between us and the early church was that miracles were their tutor. They were being tutored by the presence of the miraculous. Jesus was demonstrating the miraculous daily, and they were being trained by that because they continued to see heaven invading earth through the ministry of Jesus. And he says, now you go and do it. They're like, oh, okay, then we'll go and do it because we saw it. And I think that's the missing a lot of times in the modern church. If people are not activated in the supernatural realm, even Pentecostal and charismatic churches that believe in this stuff but are not pursuing it, they never see it. And I think once we start to see it breaking in, it makes certain ways of thinking illegal. We can't think that way anymore. We can't think according to the word impossible. Jesus said all things are possible for those who believe. And with God, all things are possible. So we've got to break through that barrier and come to a place of faith that all things are indeed possible with God, and that our assignment is to bring into the realms of impossibility. We pull heaven's realm down and see heaven invade earth, and that's where these things become possible. And so it is a revolution for people to get activated in the supernatural. And it's exciting. We've given our lives to raising up a generation of people who are moving in the power of God and transforming lives.
I think that's fantastic, and I like that you mentioned those things about pursuing it, because it is real, and we're not doing justice or service to God if we try and separate the supernatural from what the gospel actually is. And I really hope people listen and have some activation within them, or some desire to really pursue the supernatural and go out there and impact their communities where they're at, even their homes, and start seeing the power of God moving there. And I think when you were talking about When Heaven Invades Earth, I believe I've got a book from Bill Johnson called When Heaven Invades Earth. I'm sure I have. I probably would have bought it. I know me. I think I've got that one, When Heaven Invades Earth. Actually, going back to your book, Quantum Glory, there were so many things that were in my mind that stayed, that really, like I said, really informed how I prayed, and really, shed a lot of light and knowledge into that world. I wondered if there's anything that you have come to know of now that you think is necessary to share for those people who still struggle with putting science and God together. Is there anything you can tell them? Like I think I mentioned to you the whole sound waves. I'm sure in the book, like I said, I don't have it now. You talk about sound waves and how they're there in the world, that kind of hold the world together. I'm sure it's in my mind from ages ago. And you talked about the voice of God, and the sound waves, things like that. So that's always been in my mind. I've always said, the world exists because God spoke, and he's still speaking, and his voice is active and alive. And I got that, and I know I got that from your book years ago. But is there anything you want to share that you think is necessary? Any gems you want to share that you think, guys, this is where God is in science, and something that you should know?
Yeah, look, I just think that science is such a fascinating thing, because I do believe that at the end of the day, science has to match up with the revelation of God, and so that was part of my journey in writing the book, working on the premise that God is the creator of the heavens and the earth. Therefore, he is the supreme quantum physicist. And when you dig into it, the first half of the book is called Mapping the Quantum Universe. And then part 2 of the book is called Shaping the Quantum Universe. So in Mapping the Quantum Universe, what I set out to do was demonstrate that this is God's quantum physics. It's not the New Age's quantum physics. It actually belongs to God, and that he designed the universe from the ground up by speaking the world into existence. Now, you mentioned before sound waves. So sound waves, natural sound waves, work on a very physical level. It's as I'm speaking, it's causing molecules to collide, atoms to collide, and there's actually a mechanics to sound waves, and the end result is that my voice appears in your ears, and it hits these little things in our ears and then sends messages to our brain, and that's how we communicate. So you've got natural sound waves. We're listening, to things all the time, and hearing noises and sounds, and so that there's a physical mechanics to sound waves. Now, all of that, I believe, is analogous to these invisible sound waves that are in the spirit. Remember when Jesus said, the words that I speak are spirit and they are life?
Yes, yeah.
So he is, speaking words that have a spiritual impact. Now, in the creation of the universe, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and he spoke the universe into existence. Now, the Bible says he sustains the universe by the word of his power. So he speaks it into existence, and he sustains the universe through his voice. And that's not something that we hear in the natural realm. That's not audible sound. But what we would describe as natural sound waves are a prophetic picture of these invisible waves of sound in that, obviously, our voice would not travel in space, because space is a great vacuum, and it takes all these atoms to collide to create the physical mechanics of sound. But God's voice is spoken over the entire universe, and the universe is actually sustained by the word of his power. So that means that we're talking about sound waves that are in the spirit. They're spiritual sound waves. And so somehow God spoke the universe, the material world, into existence out of nothing. And so this fascinates me. I mean, I don't know if I ever will write on this subject again, but if people have questioned me and said, look, if ever you were to write a sequel or another book on quantum physics, what would you write on? There's this phenomena called the 0 point field. And the 0 point field, I don't know whether we can go into an explanation of this now, because it's a little bit, might take a few minutes. But anyway, it's about how is it that God is sustaining the entire material world through the power of his voice. And look, I don't think we do have time to go into it, because it is a bit of an explanation, and it would take us down a bit of a bunny trail. But the reality is God created the universe through the power of his voice and is sustaining it. And we don't hear those sounds, but it's in a non-local dimension, because heaven is non-local. God is a non-local being. He's not localized in space and time, except when the Word became flesh. But God is a non-local spirit being. God is spirit, and the words he speaks are spirit. and somehow those words are being transmitted. The voice of God, the song of God, his beautiful voice that sounds like many waters, is somehow sounding throughout the entire universe, sustaining the entire universe through the word of his power. And then if he was to withdraw that voice, then the entire universe would completely collapse. And that's what the scripture says will happen at the end of the age. Literally the heavens and the earth will pass away. And so the sound waves in the natural are just an analogy of something that's going on in the spirit world, where God's voice, which is spirit, is spoken over the universe and sustains. I went into string theory and suggested that they're asking what are the constituent parts of subatomic particles. What is reality at the deepest level? And they speculate and have proven mathematically that there could be all these little strings of energy that are vibrating at such a subatomic level you'd never be able to examine them with a microscope or anything like that. But they believe that the universe is made up of little strings of energy that are infinitesimally small. But what causes those strings to continually vibrate? Well, that's the voice of God. And so it's just a remarkable reality that God's fingerprints are all over the universe. Whether we're going to talk about molecular biology, astrophysics, quantum physics, the macro physical world that we live in, the fingerprints of God are all over the universe. He is the designer, he is the creator, and quantum physics is front and center in all of that. And so I think it's very mind expanding for us as followers of Christ to take the time. A lot of people have said, the book's a bit complicated. Well, yes, it is. But what I do is I take the reader step by step, introducing new concepts. And if you're patient with those concepts, the penny drops and you begin to go, I'm getting that. And it is line upon line, precept upon precept, where we're building understanding, but we've got to be patient. And I remember how patient I had to be to try and understand this stuff, and then thought, Lord, how am I going to communicate this? But God gave me the grace to be able to communicate it. And so the people who've read it, I always get feedback all the time from people who've read the book and been impacted by it and have experienced, a mind expansion, sort of almost like an expansion of consciousness to absorb this stuff and go, wow. This is the fabric of the cosmos, of the world that we live in.
Yeah, that's exactly what I experienced. And I'm so glad that you're on here to share this with everybody. And I hope it's really made, I'm going to get the book again, guys. I'm going to go and buy it again because I want my book. but it really is. I hope this is where everyone's appetite and got them really interested in this. Thank you so much, Phil. I mean, it's been an incredible, time's flown by. And it's been wonderful to share all these stories with you and learn some things. I love learning. I just sit there and love learning. We probably might ask to bring you back again because there's so much to talk about. But before you go, is there anything else you want to share? How people find you online or anything like that? Where they can buy your books? In closing, anything that would you like to just sort of add?
I would just point people to Amazon and just say that all the books, I've written 9 books, I've got a few more in the works that I haven't published yet, but 9 books that I have published and 3 that my wife has published as well are all available on Amazon globally, easy to access. Just look up Phil Mason, Quantum Glory, and my wife's book's Maria Mason. So our books are easy to get a hold of, and my hope is that it will stir passion. I just want to say how much I love your passion, Mary. It's just hearing you sharing your own stories and your own passion for the Lord, and to see heaven invade earth. And and I hope that my book can contribute in some way to, I guess, creating greater passion to see heaven invade earth, and to take up that mandate that Jesus, I guess he's challenged us with, to take a hold of his kingdom and to believe for radical breakthroughs and for miracles. And like you said, when you're in the marketplace, you're out on the front line and you're sharing the gospel, God never wanted the gospel to be separated from demonstrations of the Spirit and of power. And I think that's where we proved the gospel. I look back over my life and count myself extremely privileged to have had a front row seat to seeing so many miracles, one after another, after another, after another. I know it's radically changed me. I know I'll never be the same again. And I know that there's a stewardship of that reality now, that I'm called to steward that. And I can't just think of what happened in the past. I've got to keep going on and pursuing more of God and pursuing more of the inbreaking of his kingdom. So I hope that book can stir that in a new generation of people, and that people can go on this journey. And it's like having a component installed in your consciousness, I guess. It's the mind of Christ. I mean, it really is the mind of Christ, and it's something that we have been given this amazing capacity through God's creative design of us as human beings to be able to wrestle with these things and to understand them. And the quantum physicists have done a great service for us by explaining to us how heaven can invade Earth at a subatomic level, and how God can create new eyeballs, how God can dematerialize unwanted tumors and cancer cells. My own father contacted me and told me that he had advanced stage 4 cancer, and he had a tumor in the bottom of his right lung, and that tumor, from years of smoking, it was the size of an egg. He had an egg-shaped, egg-sized tumor in the bottom of his lung, and it was inoperable. They couldn't remove it, and he couldn't live on one lung because he was too old. So they began radiation treatment and chemotherapy. But I went and laid hands on him and prayed for him. Within 6 weeks, Mary, without any exaggeration, that thing shrunk from an egg down to a thumbnail size. And then another 6 weeks later, it had completely disappeared, so that within 12 weeks, 3 months, the doctor said, "You don't have any cancer in your body. This tumor has gone." And my dad came to Christ as a result of the miracle. And so it just demonstrates, that's where the rubber hits the road in terms of, signs and wonders and demonstrate the power of God. So I'm hoping that this interview will stir that in people's hearts to really get together with other believers and go after this stuff and pray and fast for breakthrough and to see.
Oh, thank you so much.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the Mary Moo Show. I'm here every Thursday from 7 to 8 p.m. right here on Ruach Radio. Hasn't it been a great show? I've loved every second of it. It's been wonderful. And I really hope you're supercharged like I am. Supercharged to go out there and really, present the true gospel complete with power. And just like that, the show's done. It's been jam-packed. It's been tight, hasn't it? It's been tight. But it's been good. It's been worth it. And it's been wonderful having you with me. And just like that, we have to go. I'll be back next week. I'm going to leave you with this track, which I love, which I think is a really nice end to a good show. This is Forrest Frank, No Longer Bound. I will see you next week.
You can set us free.
Take rest, cause the living God is living in my chest. Every day I wake up feeling blessed, and even if I don't, I see it as a test. Cause I was lost until you found me. Now I know you're all around me. Nothing I could ever do can separate my love from you. You came to set us free. You came to set us free. Thankful you ain't drive me in that pit. Hey now, saw my soul inside that famine, said that's it. Grace now, you never flake in the cold winter. I just came to ball with the gold winners. Fast forward, turn to a road runner. Spirit caught me here, go get it. Shed blood, gave me lemonade on this cold bennett. Pick me up. I was Timmy Turner, always
chasing after Vicky. Took me to his fountain, gave me peace and chose to cleanse me up. Now I'm testifying of your greatness, this a different look. Go, life been hitting hard, let's take it slow. Take a walk by the river and let you flow. Cause Lord, you are all I ever want. You're all I ever want. Cause I was lost until you found me. Now I know you're all around me. Nothing I could ever do to separate